This is a pod from the Hypodthesis podcast. Welcome to the This. Thank you for tuning. Okay. Get your drink. Okay. You ready?
Okay.
Thank you for tuning in to the Hypodthesis podcast. Welcome to another pod. On today's pod, we are interviewing our very own Token Wisdom.
What? I need an autograph.
Hi, Token. How are you?
I am here. How are you?
I'm also here.
Oh, wow. We're here.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. If you had to describe Token using one word, what would it be?
Symbol.
What are you a symbol of, Token?
Well, and I guess this can actually go into where the name Token comes from. So, of course, we know the idea of a token minority. Labeled simply as a black person, typically, that's just in a group of white people, just so they can have at least one black person. And, of course, the token definition means to be a symbol of something. So, I would like to be the token or the symbol for black men.
Wow. So then, who are you? Why are you the symbol for black men? You got something in your beard.
Is it water?
Oh, it might be. Yeah, okay. That's why I didn't see it. Okay.
No, it's my mustache. I touched you.
So let's get into this. You're the symbol for black men.
Yeah, symbol for black men. I think I had to come up with that because one, we have bad symbols, poor symbols of black men, black women, black people in the media as it is. But just as important, I'm pretty eclectic as an individual. I know on the outside and on the inside of the black community, we're beholden to a lot of, for lack of a better way to say it, traditional black things. Gotta be big in hip hop, the shoe game, sports, stuff like that. Not to say that I'm not into any of those things, but broaden it out a little bit.
So what types of things are you into?
I'm into anime. Really into anime. Like borderline otaku level. Please give us your best anime impression. This is my anime impression.
Ooh, that's lazy.
It's actually not. There's a theme in Japanese anime where there's a deadpan, nonchalant character.
I know. I've seen them.
Oh, you're an anime expert now.
No. But I know one. So, let's unpack this. The Hypodthesis podcast. What is even that? What is Hypodthesis podcast? How did you come up with this?
So this idea was actually created almost a decade ago, actually, at this point. A couple of friends and I used to have these very long debates about stuff from colorism to socialism to politics and stuff like that. And we always wanted to kind of have that broadcasted on a bigger forum. So we came up with this idea of pretty much coming up with the hypothesis, as scientists do, and create it into a podcast. So, of course, Hypodthesis and podcast. It's not the most ingenious name ever, but that's what we came up with.
It's pretty clever. So, why everybody has a podcast? Anybody has a podcast. Why should people listen to the Hypodthesis podcast?
A number of reasons. What I particularly like about the conversations that we have is that there is always a devil's advocate somewhere. And we like to dig deeply into how we think about tradition. I mean, even reflecting on what colorism is within the black community. In addition to that, there aren't a lot of young podcasters that are trying to elevate and build a community with other young podcasters. Trying to bridge that gap. Trying to be a token for podcasts, particularly Black podcasts.
Ooh. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I wanted to go back to that point of you being a token, and you feel like you want to be a token for Black men. What led you to feeling like you need to be this token, or you would like to serve in the space of tokenism?
Life. I think historically it's just been easy to shirk your responsibility as an individual, realizing as a Black person that you always will represent more than who you are as an individual. And with me knowing just so many people who are indignant, most of the time rightfully so, just kind of providing that more gentle voice and approach, specifically in reflection, to move forward, if that makes sense.
What in your past led you to feel like this?
I grew up on the streets. We have no grass and nothing like that, just rocks everywhere. Wild dingoes and coyotes, man.
Please stop.
Live right next to the woods, in the streets and the jungle at the same time. It's crazy. And just kind of watching how people operated and realizing really quickly, even as really young, understanding that the people in my neighborhood that I was growing up in acted primarily out of desperation. Whether that's them committing crimes or trying to take shortcuts or just trying to make money. Whether that's on a corner, slanging dope, hooking, selling hot dogs. They went with whatever resources that they had and they did what they could with it. So it just made me think that either people are too afraid to talk about the psychological and systemic aspect of what's going on, or people are too ignorant to do so. Either way, I wanted to start those conversations.
So, one of my questions is what is your biggest issue with the Black community? But I don't think I really want to talk about that. What I want to ask you is, what can the Black community take away from the conversations that are had on the Hypodthesis podcast? Do you feel like it is going to connect to the people that were in these communities that you felt like needed to act out of desperation, or you felt like needed this information? Will they be able to receive this? Is it in a digestible format?
Right. So that's the goal, right? We want to put ourselves in a position to start talking more to grassroots leadership or people in the community to elevate their voice. That's why we like to have people on the podcast. And you don't necessarily have to be this great, highly academic person or professional or CEO. But we do require you to be knowledgeable. And I think there are a lot of people on the streets that are knowledgeable that just don't have the resources to really utilize their knowledge or the training. So I think as we continue to invite more people on, as we continue to build events, whether that's getting people to vote, food drives, backpack drives, back to school stuff, job training, or really whatever we can bring to the community. That's our goal.
In 3 years, where do you see the Hypodthesis podcast?
Well, if the earth is still here, we should have dethroned the Breakfast Club by then. We should be the new school of thought and conversation.
I didn't even mention your role in Orsonist Media. What is your role in Orsonist Media, and what are some of your long-term goals for Orsonist Media?
So primarily right now for Orsonist Media, I take care of the data analytics and a lot of the technology setup, as well as doing some editing for videos as well. I would say my personal goal with Orsonist Media would be 3 different things. One, turning Orsonist Media into a training program, essentially. Anybody that we hire on as we expand, we want to make sure that they have the same kind of training opportunities as we did. With my expertise in data and research, and also Taylor's expertise in research and editing as well, we can always be teachers to whoever we bring on. And then we want them to be teachers for whoever they bring on, and so on and so forth. Second goal would be to really create a library of images, photos, documentaries that really start telling our story. And by our story, I mean the ones that are untold, the ones that are integral to how the world works, but don't often get, the lights. And there's probably one more somewhere out there. Yeah.
What do you want to leave with the people, Token?
The tools to dismantle capitalism.
And what do you want out of the revolution?
I'll keep it at a new world order with the root philosophy built out of James Baldwin, Fannie Lou Hamer, what's that lady name?
Sana Shakur, Angela Davis, ones.
Those two. I can't remember the other lady name. I just wrote something about it. Shirley Chisholm. Yeah. Now I forgot completely what I was talking about.
The revolution, Token.
Oh yeah. Just a new normality of philosophical reflection and the ability to utilize our history.
Right on, brother. All power to the people. This has been another pod of the Hypodthesis podcast. Thank you, Token, for joining us. And until next time, we're out.
Ah!
It's not off.
Oh shoot. Not gonna have that little thing in.